Hey, welcome. As a long-time Leica user, I was really excited when I got to test the new Leica M EV1 in Warsaw. Now, if you saw my last video, you may have seen my attempt to avoid buying the Leica M EV1 by using my Lumix S9 for a recent trip. Today's video is going to be the wrap-up of the Leica M EV1. My first impressions, likes, dislikes. I'm going to compare it to my existing cameras and some alternative similar Leica cameras, and then stay with me and I'll do the overall wrap-up and whether or not I'm gonna be tempted enough to buy a Leica M EV1. I'll also include sample photos from shooting the camera in Warsaw. My first impressions of the Leica M EV1. You can already see by the grin on my face, it's a really nice camera. I really enjoyed using it. I must say a huge thanks to Leica Warsaw. We're in Poland doing like a road trip, and I called into the Warsaw store with Toby and Thomas and said, can I book out like M EV1 to test? And so we went back the next day. I had a few hours with the camera, and I'll bring up some sample photos. It's such a nice camera to use. It ticks so many boxes. Okay, here are some sample photos using the Leica M EV1 when walking around in Poland. This is not a scientific test or image test because I was using lots of different lenses, vintage Leica lenses, modern Leica lenses, non-Leica branded lenses, and then I added a kind of simple preset to finish them off. As a model photographer, I much prefer using an EVF to a rangefinder. Rangefinder is great for street and travel where you just want quick, precise focus. But if you're using very shallow depth of field lenses, EVFs really help. So my eyes have just got so used to EVF cameras that when I held the EV1 with an EVF in like an M-sized body, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. It's like the best of both worlds. So love the size, love the weight, love the experience of looking through the EVF. As someone that shoots a single shot with manual focus and static subjects, I didn't really notice at first all the drawbacks that I'd heard on the internet. Oh, the EVS got loads of problems, it's not perfect, blah blah blah. I'll talk about that in a second. But from how I was shooting it, I didn't see any of that. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Single shot, punch the joystick, say 10 times, zoom in, focus on the eye, half click, pull back out, recompose, take my shot. The only thing I'd say is, and we'll probably talk about this more later on, I do still prefer the P camera styling of M cameras. So what I mean by that is, if you look at EV1, you've got the red dot on the front and you've got a blank plate on the top. I'd be really tempted if I got the EV1 to take it to Wetzlar and get the top plate engraved, similar to what I did with my Leica MA, and similar to how I converted my M10 to an M10-P, because this used to have a blank top plate. You can see that video. Okay, so reasons to buy a Leica MV1. Currently my most used camera is a Leica SL2S, and so the three reasons especially against this camera would be a lighter camera, a smaller camera, and also more megapixels, because I want to start using a higher megapixel camera for scanning my film, and I think for the larger film negatives especially, more megapixels will help. Next, let's talk about the drawbacks, because the EV1 is not perfect if you've seen any other YouTube videos. Okay, so known issues with the Leica M EV1. First, focusing and focus peaking specifically. Sometimes focus peaking isn't precisely accurate. So I think some photographers were just assuming that if things went red, then it was in focus. With the M EV1 and the firmware, that's not necessarily true, and so people were misfocusing. So that was like a big red flag for people not to buy the camera. Number two, if you're coming from a modern camera, the EV1 doesn't have IBIS. I use, as I say, M cameras and film cameras and lots of cameras that don't have IBIS, so for me I didn't even notice, but if you rely on IBIS, that's an issue. Three, this is probably more important if you're a street photographer and you need to be really fast. There is quite a bit of a startup lag on the EV1. I didn't really notice because as a model photographer I turn it on, chat to the model and then take a photo when the camera's ready. But startup lag is an issue with the current version of the EV1. Number four, this is probably more of a personal one. Everyone has the specific likes and dislikes which make you either buy a camera or avoid a camera. Some people absolutely hate like M11 colours, and so they sell their camera and they go back to an M10 or an M9 or an M240, whatever. Personally, I've used the M11, I've done tests with it, and like the M EV1, which has got the same sensor, I didn't notice bad colours, but I do add presets to my raw files, so for me the colours are not an issue. And lastly, number five, tilt screens. modern cameras and non-Leica cameras often have tilt screens. You're not going to get a flippy screen on the Leica M EV1. That may be a deal breaker for you when you can get other Leica cameras that do have articulating screens. So those are probably the biggest issues that people complain about the EV1. There are a few other things that I could probably live with but are less than ideal. Number one, battery life is pretty poor, so you need spare batteries. I'll talk about that in a second. Number two, no video option. For me, ideally I'd have one small camera that did photo and video, just because for my user case I'm a YouTuber, so it means I don't need to carry multiple cameras. And number three, I don't really get it. It's only got 64 gig internal memory, where the M11-P has got I think 256 gig. So I'm like, why didn't they just put 256 in as standard? Unless they're trying to make space for the EV1P, which I'm sure will come with a script on the top, and then they can say this is the P version with 256 gig, mirroring what they did like M11 versus M11P. Comment below if you've got more insight into these sorts of things. Now I quickly want to talk about weight, because weight is quite important to me as mentioned. The EV1 is a light camera, but there are a few small caveats. First, if I end up putting a nice grip on it like I did with my Leica M10-P, this is a camera craft grip and now it just stays on the camera. Grips will add a bit of weight. Number two is it's an EVF camera, not a rangefinder camera like the M10-P I've got here. EVFs eat batteries more than rangefinder cameras. If I compare the shots per battery compared to my Leica SL2S that I use most of the time, this is like say 500 plus photos per charge, probably even more because I shoot manual focus most of the time. The EV1 is said to do only 244 shots per battery, and so it's like less than half. And I always carry a spare battery when I'm shooting with the Leica SL2S, and I'm normally on to the second battery by maybe the second half of the day if it's a long day of shoots or travelling or whatever. That means for my user case, and let's say I'm out of day and I can't charge, I would need at least 2 spare batteries for the Leica M EV1. That means if you do the maths, by the time you've added the camera weight plus a spare grip, I ended up getting a grip, plus 2 spare batteries, the weight is now almost the same as the Leica SL3, which is a lighter version of the Leica SL2S. So now I'm like, if I'm going to change it to make it look like my Leica M10-P, which would be additional cost if I've got to send it to Vetsa to get it engraved on the top, and then if I need to carry spare batteries it's going to be a similar weight to my SL cameras, I'm like, maybe I should reconsider some of my existing cameras. So what we'll do now is take a closer look at some of the SL cameras and M cameras, just a few of each. I've done some slides. If you like the slides, please like this video, it really helps, and makes me feel like the slides were worth making. So first up, I could buy a Leica SL3. Leica SL3, if I bought them used, are around £4,000, and so it's a much more cost-effective alternative to a 60 megapixel camera, and I get video, and I get autofocus, and I get IBIS, and I get weather sealing, tilt screen. The list of benefits of getting an SL3 over an EV1 is just endless. The only real drawback, it is like a bulkier camera, and it is a heavier camera. The SL3 on paper is a much better kind of more complete camera than the EV1. That got me thinking. I'm like, I've actually got the original Leica SL601. This camera is absolutely fantastic value. Then now you can get them for maybe 1,100. You may not realise this, but the original SL is almost the same weight as a reduced weight Leica SL3. I could use this as my travel camera instead of carrying my Tanker SL2S, which I made even worse, I'll be honest, because I put a grip on it. So the SL2S, once you put like all the trimmings on it, gets pretty heavy. This is like 1.2 kilos. I think this is 840 kilos. The original SL has got obviously the massive cost benefit. It gives you most of the benefits of the older SL cameras, but it doesn't have IBIS and it is only 24 megapixels. Just remember that, versus the SL3. The other option, of course, would be to use my usual camera, the SL2S. These are also quite cost effective, especially compared to an SL3 or an EV1. You can normally pick them up now for, I'd say, under £2,000. This now has IBIS, it has USB-C charging benefits over the older model. Good video, but it's still 24 megapixels. Now SL cameras are great, but they don't get around the fact that they're still quite big cameras. So let's now look at some M cameras. First, the Leica M10-P. So if you saw that video, this is a converted M10 to M10-P, and now I absolutely love how it looks. Older M cameras are cheaper than the EV1. and you can add a VisoFlex or EVF to the top, so then you have rangefinder and EVF option, and it's in a small package, so great for travel. I could just put an even smaller lens on it. I do enjoy using the rangefinder for kind of if I do street stuff, documentary stuff, travel stuff. I just tend to put an EVF on if I shoot with models or use lenses which are not precisely calibrated to the rangefinder. The other option, of course, is to buy like M11-P. The problem is, once you buy a modern M, you're looking at the same price or more compared to the EV1, so there's no real cost benefit. You do have the benefit of obviously a rangefinder plus EVF. The M11 is lighter than the M10. The M11 has got the same sensor as the EV1, so it does tick a lot more boxes. The drawback is the price is pretty much the same or more for the M if you buy a new M. So that kind of got me thinking even more. What if you use two cameras instead of one? If an M EV1 costs around £6,000 used currently, you could buy like SL and say an M240 or an M10, a mid-range M camera, and then you can use your SL series camera in the studio, and like with big lenses and say for adapting lenses and say wide lenses, telephoto lenses, all the benefits of like an EVF camera. And then you can use your M camera as like your everyday carry, your street camera, your travel camera, and both cameras can be bought for less than the price of a used M EV1, and both cameras individually are better at what they do than the EV1. The only drawback is you won't get higher megapixels. But so what is the verdict? I did absolutely love using the Leica M EV1, but considering the cameras I've already got, I might be better to just try to use a two camera setup. So that's my plan, but final thought, at some point they're going to release a Leica M10-12, at some point it's probably going to be EV1P would be my guess. It would make sense that they do a script top plate, no red dot, 256 gig internal memory, maybe improved firmware version of the current version. There will then be an EV2. When all these cameras come out, the price of the EV1 will eventually drop down, like it did with every camera that's ever been released. That might be the time that I'll be maybe more tempted to get one. But for now, I'm going to stick with the cameras I've got and then maybe try and find a different solution for scanning. If you own or have tried an EV1 or been tempted, did I miss anything? Please comment below on things that I may have missed. I'll put some videos on the screen next for some of the mentioned cameras. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, it really helps. Thanks as always to my amazing patrons.